This is what would happen if you traveled 1 billion years into the past. Shorter days, no visible life, noxious gases in the atmosphere, bombarded by deadly ultraviolet rays from the sun with black sludgy oceans and barren land. The Earth just entered the Neo-Proterozoic era, and this is how long you'd be able to survive here. Everyone knows the survival rule of 3, stating as a general ballpark that we can survive about 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 hours without shelter in extreme environments, and 3 minutes without air. There's obviously exceptions, but it's a generalization. Let's run through that survival list and see how long you'd last on old Earth. Before we can do anything, we still have to be able to see. So will the sun still be there to give us light? Yes, it would, but a typical day would be around 18 hours instead of the usual 24, so we'd have to adjust to that. That is, if we can even survive until then, so let's start with food. Plants and animals, as we know today, basically don't exist yet at all. The Cambrian explosion, a period of rapid evolution that resulted in a lot of new forms of more complex life on Earth, wasn't set to happen for at least another 500 million years, so there wouldn't really be much to eat. Life existed pretty much only in the ocean, as simple, single, or even multi-celled organisms, and possibly some basic plants like algae. Yup, floating bacteria in the ocean is pretty much all we got for dinner. What about drinking water? How were the oceans like? Well, we actually kind of know exactly what they were like. Scientists found 2.7 billion year old water under Ontario, Canada, that remained untouched by our atmosphere for at least 1 billion years. They took it up to study, and one brave soul actually tasted it herself, and it was nasty. Saltier than today's oceans, thicker than regular water, and it also turned orange when exposed to oxygen. This is what we call primordial soup, thick water filled with the early forms of microbial life. Great for kickstarting the theoretical process of evolution, not so much for drinking. What about shelter on old Earth? Could we at least protect ourselves from the elements? Well, a billion years ago, Earth would have been pretty flat. Big mountain ranges haven't had the chance to form yet on our shifting plates, so finding caves to shelter in would prove difficult. All land on the planet was a collection of land masses crammed closely together, forming the supercontinent of Rodinia? Yeah, not even Pangea. That wasn't set to form for another 700 million years. We've actually had a bunch of supercontinents on Earth, like Columbia, Rodinia, Pannotia, Gondwana, and then finally Pangea. In this case, it was Rodinia, surrounded by a superocean named Morovia. In these days, massive super earthquakes and super volcanoes were the norm, from how close together the tectonic plates were all grinding up against each other, so you'd be dealing with that as well. Microscopic food, salty thick water to drink, and barely any shelter. Things aren't looking so good. How about air? Could we at least breathe out here? The air was technically breathable, but only for a few minutes due to the low concentration of oxygen before you'd pass out. Oxygen levels were at about 2%, while today we're at 21%, so breathing would be difficult. And there would almost definitely be some weird airborne microbes in the air that our bodies aren't used to and would us if we inhaled them. Not to mention the ozone layer wasn't set to form for another 400 million years, so the sun's radiation would very quickly fry you too. If the heat didn't get you first, as the average global temperature could have been anywhere around 50 degrees Celsius, but they're really just guessing here. The only thing that would be the same as it is right now is gravity, our friendly universal constant. But this is really all just a scientific guess at best. In fact, we're missing about 1 billion years of Earth's history, during which time we don't really know what happened. When dealing with these timescales of hundreds of millions, billions of years, we look at the geological record for study, core samples, and rock layers. The deeper we go, the further back in time we are, and newer, more recent layers get stacked on top. We can analyze these layers for their chemical composition and find out what the Earth was like during a specific era. But all over the entire world, there's an abrupt missing section of layers, and we have no idea why. Known as the Great Unconformity, best exposed in the Grand Canyon, where you can find Cambrian-era rocks about 500 million years old, stacked directly on top of Precambrian rocks about 1.7 billion years old. That's 1.2 billion years missing, right in the middle of which we'd find Earth 1 billion years ago. Yeah, I know it's a lot of math, but basically we have no clue what it was like.